In a culture today where it's so polarizing to the point where people lose relationships, lose connections, and honestly dig their heels in their beliefs and narratives to the point where we're willing to lose those relationships, what do we do then? Even if our beliefs are firm and we don't want to compromise our thought process and what we do believe in our convictions, what do we do? Well, stay tuned to this next episode of Living Fully Fit, where we're going to dive in deep on how we create a bridge, building the bridge to understanding and communication with relationships. Well, welcome to another episode of Living Fully Fit with Coach AJ. I'm Coach AJ. And in these videos, in this podcast, what we do is we try to navigate through different aspects of fitness, whether it's mental fitness, whether it's physical fitness, or spiritual fitness. Now, this category is a little bit more of like physical, spiritual, mental, and it connects to the relational aspect of our fitness, of our health, building those healthy relationships of communication. And this episode is titled Building the Bridge to Understanding. How do we build that bridge when there's a lot of gaps in our communication and in our culture today? If you look at the world around you, it's so polarizing. There's so many people with disagreements, with different ideas, different thought processes, and people are so willing to destroy relationships, destroy connections, destroy reputations, all because they want to be right. And I get it. We all have our convictions. We have things that we believe firmly in, but that doesn't mean we can't respect others' beliefs and thought processes and be willing to just shut up sometimes and listen. And then hopefully through good listening skills and through process and communication and building good relationships, we're able to then also share our convictions, our beliefs, in the hopes that maybe there are connections, that there are ways we can intersect. But that doesn't happen so often. I see this all the time. There's such a need to be right versus being understanding. And I get this. We want to be right. And this comes from an inherent need to share our perspective in a way that's passionate. I get it. People are passionate about their perspective, about their beliefs. I get that. That makes sense. But where we need to draw the line is, am I willing to be right to the point where I lose this relationship? I see this also, this polarization of thought, and it's divided so many people. It's divided families. It's dividing coworkers. It's dividing churchgoers. It's places where you would think that there's division. There's division. You would think in a family you can be safe, talking politics in a reasonable forum, especially in a family. But I've seen some parents and children who do not talk to each other anymore because of different political beliefs. You see this in church, especially. Right now, there's this big call for the Western church to just push a Republican agenda. Now, here's the thing. I do claim myself to be a Republican, but I'm more of a libertarian myself. But here's the thing. I don't believe that there is a certain political structure for the church. If the church is pushing a political agenda, the church is doing the wrong thing. The church should be focused on preaching the word of God and building kingdom and sharing the word to other people and clothing the sick and the naked and taking care of people, right? That's what it should be doing. It shouldn't be injecting into politics because it creates division. And I'm not saying we shouldn't be involved in those things and share our opinions and such, but we have to think about this and process it honestly a little carefully, tread lightly, not so in a way that we're passive, but in a way that we're building relationships and helping navigate people through good relationships and connect with people, building that bridge, so to speak. I see it also, in relationships, school, even, again, teachers are pushing their agenda, students are pushing back, and so on and so forth, and no one's having conversation. You see all these TikTok videos and YouTube videos of people in schools and college campuses shouting at each other, having shouting matches about beliefs. One person believes one way, the other person believes the other way. One person's cussing and calling them names and being belittling them and whatnot, and the other person trying to defend or vice versa, and just it gets ugly. For what reason? Why can't we just disagree and then move on and try to find ways we can agree? Try to find those connecting dots, and then maybe we might win that person over to our thought process or vice versa. Or if we don't, we can respectfully disagree and move on. That's not happening anymore because we rather be right and pursue our rightness over the relationship. That's the sad reality in all this. I see this so many times. No one listens anymore or considers the other person's point of view. What we want to do is we want to show how you're wrong and how I'm right and how my thoughts are superior and yours are inferior. That's what we're trying to do a lot of times. You see this all the time. You see this in, again, college campuses. I've seen this in church, especially too, where people will share a Bible verse, and then all these Christians are like, "Well, I need to show you how this Bible verse was mistaken, and you're wrong, or your thought about this about Jesus is wrong. Here's why. And here's a plethora novel on your social media to show that I'm superior than you. Here's some big words, and hopefully you look dumb. And here's why I'm right." And you see this often. I see this often on my channel, on my platform especially. And it's funny. I could take it. I have thick skin. I don't care what people think. I'd rather have conversation and go back and forth and have good dialogue. But no one's willing to do that anymore, especially in the confines of a relationship. I would say if you really want to build relationship, quit going back and forth on social media, especially these long and novel like comments. If you know the person personally, pick up the phone and say, "Hey, I saw that post. What did you mean by that? I want to understand. I want to get a grasp of where you're coming from." And if they are wrong, then after they talk and you've processed it and you've thought of good words to say, then you can bring your, reflection and your thought and maybe your way of saying, "Hey, I can see what you're saying there, but here's what this really means." And they might consider it depending on how you interact with them, what words you say, and honestly, how it comes off. But it's easier to do that on the phone or in person because what you're doing essentially is you're saying, "I care enough to pick up the phone to hear your tone, to understand your motive, and to kind of feel the intent a little bit more." You can't do that on a text. You can't really do that on a Facebook comment or whatever comments you're doing. And I get it. Sometimes we just have to do it through the comments, but we have to understand that words have meaning and be careful how we share those words and those thoughts and emotions because emotions can't be read on text and or a comment. And what usually happens, people assume the emotion of the person, and then it creates this bottleneck effect, this trickling effect of destruction. And it's honestly, it doesn't do any good. It just destroys the relationship or potential understanding. But here's my thing: is we're gonna go over a few topics here that people tend to do, and people tend to go over when it comes to communication and understanding ideas. First is politics. Right now, politically, we are the most divided I think we've ever been politically. You look at the world around us, no longer just, Republican, Democrat, and we just, bicker a little bit and argue, and then we're still friends at the end of the day. Not anymore. Today, it's just outright dangerous to be a certain, political person or to believe in a certain political thought, whatever. And to the point where either people will destroy you verbally, they'll attack you physically sometimes, but you see this, especially on social media, people will just cancel you. They'll cut you out of their life. I have an example. So a few years back, I have a second cousin closer to my mom's age, and I'm gonna say it because I'm not really friends with her anyways. But in this experience, I had posted something, some kind of political thing, and she had a response, and we went back and forth a little bit, and it ended up the result was that she blocked me and unfriended me as her friend on social media, and I haven't heard from her since. And this cousin used to babysit me, so I was pretty hurt about this that she would do that. I don't understand because for me, the way I was raised is that we may disagree, but in the end, we come together and find a way to connect again, or we agree to disagree. That doesn't happen anymore. The agreeing to disagree part, Now, I get it. There's something that's really vile and evil, and they're agreeing on something that's quite disgusting. There's a lot of subjects out there. We don't have to go into detail what the subjects are, but you know what those are. You know, and there's certain things that you don't come together on. You don't compromise on. I get that. But there's a way to do it in a way that's not destroying that person personally, verbally, whatever. But I see this so often, just minor, thought processes, minor things that, disagreement, different idea, different narrative, different, morals, beliefs. And because you don't believe that way, you have a different mind, you have a different thought, you're automatically attacked and you're wrong. And here's why you're wrong. That's so sad politically. We can disagree on a lot of things, but I think what we can agree with both sides is people matter. Justice matters. Treating people equally and with respect and dignity matters. Those things matter. We could all agree on those, can we not? But I don't think we do. I think we just rather just, stand on our soapbox and preach and point about why other people are wrong. I see this in faith. A lot of times, different religions, some are more respectful than others. I'll tell you that. Some are more respectful than others. I'll tell you, some religions and some beliefs are way more respectful and some are disrespectful. And I would say in the most recent years, the Western Protestant Christian faith has become way more disrespectful lately. I'm going to say it. Coming from a Protestant Christian myself, someone who believes in Jesus, someone who believes, I'll tell you right now, I've seen this. I saw this in ministry many times, and I was at fault too a few times of being disrespectful about how we share our faith. And it's not just because here's the thing: in the end of the day, we're not about pointing out other people's wrongs and why they're wrong and why their belief is wrong and why X, Y, and Z is wrong about what they believe in. It's not about that. It's just about being there, sharing the good news of what Jesus did on the cross. It's about sharing our faith, sharing goodness, sharing grace, those kind of things. And it's not up to me to convict their heart, to convict their mind. It's the Holy Spirit's role to do so. But here's what happens is we think that it's our role because we have this moral superiority, this self-righteousness, this zeal. And I get it, being zealous is great to have that fervor and that excitement about your faith, but there's a way to do it in a way that's not disrespectful and in a way that's also respectful to other people that you can again build that bridge. I also see it in the faith right now too, Christians against Christians. One Christian person says this, I believe this. Other person says, well, I don't believe. I think you're wrong. And it's a clash of thought instead of a discussion. And that's where the whole, if you don't know that person personally, why do you assume the worst of them? And I see that happen all the time. I make these videos, I make shorts all the time, making a lot of content as a content creator and as a podcaster. And, whenever I post my thought process, my opinion based off of an interpretation, how I read the scripture and, that look digging deep, I do a lot of research. I don't just, shoot from the hip. I do my research and then I share my content. And you'll have some people that will have conversation. Hey, what do you mean by that? And it's great when we have those conversations because we meet in the middle and we connect, we build that bridge. That's great. But then you have other people who are like, "You're wrong. You're an idiot. Here's why you're an idiot. You're wrong." And they'll fight back for whatever reason, and they don't have anything to back it up with. That's the funny thing. I see this a lot where they'll argue, but they have nothing to back up their argument. They'll fight you, but there's no scriptural basis, there's no evidence to back up their narrative. It's just they're emotionally triggered by something. And a lot of times I think it's because they're emotionally triggered by something that they're dealing with internally or things that they actually see because it's true. So I look at those aspects as well. But the thing is that we are polarizing politics, polarizing faith, and worldview is another one. We look at the world right now of what's happening in our world, and you see this right now. Everybody's like either pro Palestine, pro Israel, and there's no middle ground. And I'm thinking to myself, I made a post recently about, there's innocents on both sides that are being destroyed. I get it. There's evil, and we should combat evil, but you can't forget about the innocents on both sides. There are innocents in Gaza. There are innocents in Israel. that are being destroyed, that are being hurt, being harmed. And what about them? Are we trying to protect the innocent, the disenfranchised, the people who didn't ask for this war? You have other aspects in the worldview, people's thought processes on hot topics, for instance, abortion or sexuality. We're so quick to just point, say, this is right, you're wrong, here's why. And I get that. I get that. But there's a better way of doing that. There's a better way of having discussion to build understanding. And let's say you can't get to that person. There's no discussing it further. Okay, you can't agree to disagree and move on and just hope and pray for them or try to connect in a different way. Because here's the thing, if you really want to change the world around you in a healthy way and build healthy relationships and a healthy mind, the way to do so, the way to do so isn't by fighting everything, battling everything. And I'm not saying you have to be a passive person. I'm not asking you to be passive. That doesn't mean you should be aggressive to everything. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Doesn't just because you can say whatever doesn't mean you should. Just because you have the freedom to do so doesn't mean you should. If you're that personality is like, well, I just shoot from the hip. I just tell it how it is. I'm just real. I don't sugarcoat things. I just say it how it is. Well, okay. Does that build relationship? Are you hurting people by doing that? If you are, you're wrong. Even if what you believe is actually the right thing, the way you do it is going to make you just as wrong, especially in the eyes of God. Think about that. So you can be right, but you could be dead right. You can be right, but you can be dead right. And you can be so dead right that you destroy every relationship and any potential that you could have if you would just shut up, listen, process, wait, and consider the other person. Consider that they are a human being and that, maybe what you have to say doesn't need to be said at that moment. Maybe you could hold back and wait for the right moment to say whatever you need to say in the right tone, in the right context, with the right words. And once you do that, then you're able to build relationships, build the bridges of connection, and maybe even be able to influence that person in a positive direction, in a positive way. And your voice might be heard a little bit better when you do that. But there's so many people that aren't willing to do that. They just rather be right. And it's sad and it's so unfortunate that because of that reason, we are missing out on possible relationships, on possible connections. We're missing out on real peace. I don't believe there's ever going to be world peace in our time. I don't believe it. I do believe that there can be pockets of peace and pockets of connection when we're doing the right thing with the right intent. Sometimes the best way to build bridges, again, is to shut up, listen more, process more, understand more. And you are only able to understand when you shut up, when you're not trying to respond to whatever they have to say. If you're trying to listen to respond, you're not listening. Listen to understand, listen to process, listen to consider, listen to empathize, listen with all your mind, focus on them, not what you're going to say next. Because when you do that, you're not building a bridge. You're building walls. You're burning bridges. You're destroying things. You're dropping bombs on conversations and relationship. That's what you're doing. If you want to say things and you want to say whatever it is you want to say, you want to convey your thought process, you want to convey your convictions, you want to convey your mindset, whatever it is, your beliefs, you have to wait and discern, process what you're going to say. And then I would say this, ask yourself this question: is what I'm going to say going to bring value to this conversation and to this relationship? Is what I'm about to say to this person going to help create mutual understanding? If not, then maybe I should wait. If not, then maybe I should process this. If not, then maybe I should consider that I need to humble myself Turn off the narcissism, because everybody has a tendency to be narcissistic. Turn that off. Think about the other person. Just sit there and listen. You can do no wrong by just listening. You open your mouth, a lot can happen. You open your mouth, a lot of bad can happen. A lot of shenanigans can be said. But when you're quiet, you're processing, you're listening, you're absorbing, there's greater potential for connection. There's greater potential for them to actually consider your thoughts. Because let's say you're right. Everything you have to say is correct. The moment you open your mouth while they're talking, while they're trying to share their story, or they're angry, whatever it is, you've lost that battle. But when you've processed it, listened, and then you respond in a appropriate time with appropriate words, with appropriate context, and all those appropriate tone, then guess what? You have built that bridge then. You're able to actually convey your message, and your message is going to be it's going to be received in a greater capacity because you've taken the time. And if you don't take that time, you're going to lose the battle. Again, like I said, just because you're right doesn't mean you're not going to be dead right. Because you could be right, but dead right. And it means you're destroying and putting to death every relationship you have. Any possible connection, any possibility of having those good conversations, of building bridges, of creating understanding. Because again, you can kill relationship and the possibility of your thought being considered by opening your mouth without thought, without process, without understanding. Being the person who doesn't hold back the truth doesn't put you in a moral superiority. You're not morally superior just because you're the kind of person who just shoots from the hip and just tells it how it is, and because you have no filter. No, develop a filter, please. You need a filter. If you're the kind of person that doesn't talk without a filter, you need a filter. If you're the kind of person who just talks and talks and you have no filter and everybody's like, oh, that's just how they are, you're wrong. You're wrong. Even if you're a great speaker, you're charismatic, you have these great thoughts, and if some of those thoughts are right, you're going to lose your audience. And your audience doesn't mean a big audience, it can be one on one. That's an audience still. One person's audience. You'll lose your audience when you're not connecting in a way that that breeds understanding. And that's the thing is, you're opening your mouth without thought. You're just not holding back. You're just speaking without a filter. When you speak without a filter, when you speak without thought, you're the one in the wrong, even if you're right. One of the great examples I can think of is Jesus. I think of Jesus when it comes to this stuff. I think about when he said something, it was timing, it was words that was considered. He said the right thing at the right time, at the right moment, with the right person, the right context, always. Greatest example. Whether you believe in Jesus or not, whether you believe, even if you don't believe in Jesus, Jesus is a great example of what to say and when to say it and when not to say it. Am I not right? I mean, think about that. Think about if you really want to emulate a great person, with whatever your beliefs are, the greatest person to emulate is Jesus when it comes to this. Is you look at how can I address hard topics, discussions, but yet still create connection. You have to see people through the lens of love. Even if you hate what they believe, you hate what they're doing, you have to see them with the lens of love. When you do that, then you're able to build bridges. Anyways, I hope that this segment has been helpful for you as you're navigating, just like I'm navigating, this crazy polarized world we're living in. And hopefully this stuff can be, implemented in your own personal life. And if honestly this is you, then hey, work on it. Address it. And if it's triggering you, it's probably you. You're the kind of person who's causing a ruckus with people. So take it, learn, grow, take a step back, process, and hopefully you can build more bridges than build walls. Anyways, hopefully this video was helpful to you. I'm Coach AJ, and thank you so much for watching another episode of Living Fully Fit. If this content is helpful, make sure to go ahead and like and subscribe and hit the notification bell to get more updates for further content coming up your way. And if you know anybody who can benefit from this video, go ahead and click the share button, copy the link, and send it to someone else. And if you want some advice or you have some thought, I would love to talk to you. Go ahead and put some comments in the comments section. Love to have a discussion. Love talking to my viewers. And check me out on Facebook, on TikTok, and on Instagram. Anyways, thanks for watching. I'm Coach AJ. Have a blessed afternoon and see you next time on Living Fully Fit, Coach AJ.